and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be tackling two topics, the first of which will be the government is actually seeking to convene its first parliamentary session before the end of this year, 2015. We're going to be talking about the results so far and what is to be anticipated from the parliament. The second topic, we're going to be discussing the Egyptian Central Bank actually pumping about $1 billion into the banks across Egypt. We're going to be talking about the repercussions of such pumping, and we're going to be talking about that with our distinguished guest, Dr. Ali Massoud, the head of the economics department at Suhail University. Dr. Massoud, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our discussion, let's check out this report regarding Egypt drumming up convening its first parliamentary session before the end of this year, and we'll be right back.
The first session of the newly elected parliament is due to take place before the end of December. President al-Sisi made the announcement in a meeting with the Speaker of the Hellenic Parliament in Athens last week. The House of Representatives comprises of 596 members, with 448 elected as independents, 120 through the winner-take-all party list system, and 28 seats to be appointed by the President. President Sisi is expected to appoint the 28 members next week. Head of the High Election Committee, announced in a news conference that the overall turnout in the parliamentary elections, which took place in October and November, stood at 28.3%. He said a total of 15,206,010 out of 53,786,762 eligible voters had cast ballots. He said three secular political parties have gained the lion's share of seats in the coming parliament. These are the Free Egyptians Party, the Future of the Homeland, and the Wavd, who have gained 148 seats, which is around 30%, while 17 political parties gained 88 seats only. The results showed that financial support by businessmen has helped three political parties emerge as the main winners at the end of the polls. A considerable number of high-profile businessmen were able to win seats either as independents or as candidates running on the list of the Full Love of Egypt electoral coalition, which supports the president. Egypt has not had a parliament since June 2012, after the People's Assembly was dissolved per court order about 6 months after its election. Parliamentary elections are the final step in the roadmap set out by Sisi in 2013. The elected parliament will be entrusted with the task of reviewing the laws that were passed whilst the parliament was not in session. Meanwhile, President Sisi assured a group of prominent businessmen that the government supports a key role for them in the economy. The meeting came after several press reporters suggested the president was not satisfied with the performance of businessmen. President Sisi seized the meeting to send a message of reassurance to investors and businessmen that his regime does not intend to launch a crackdown campaign against businessmen. Minister of Planning اشرف expects the economy to grow at a pace of less than 5% in the first quarter of 2015-16 fiscal year, but to accelerate in the coming years. He said that with the injection of new investments, Gulf investment and financial packages, and new road projects, all of this will push Egypt over the 5% level. Adding, the government will look to push the budget deficit below 10% of GDP during this period. Egypt revised its GDP growth target for the current fiscal year to 5.5% from 5%, and set its economy 4.2% in the 2014-15 fiscal year, up from 2.2% the previous year.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Starting off our debate tonight, talking about the Egyptian Parliament waiting to convene its first session, hopefully before the end of 2015. Dr. Massoud, first of all, everyone was anticipating the formation of the Egyptian Parliament as part of the third step of the transitional roadmap drawn after the June 30th revolution. How do you see, because we've been without a parliament since 2012, so how do you see now the Egyptian political system after adapting for a couple of years without parliament? How do you see a parliament in the Egyptian political system changing the political life and the procedures in the political life here in Egypt?
At Actually, this coming parliament is a very important parliament in the history of Egypt, not only because it is formation and how the electorate actually the people who are elected in this parliament, but because the task of this parliament. This parliament can actually in the transition period that will transform Egypt from mostly social oriented economy to capital economy, as well as to a more democratic regime and more democratic system. It actually means lots of laws are going to be done in this parliament. Lots of tasks actually is waiting for this parliament.
And how do you evaluate the process in general of the elections up until the stage that we're in right now? Do you feel that it was a successful process? Did you have higher hopes? Did you have lower hopes?
Yes, actually it was a great success story. The elections process in the two stages was just great. We actually would love to have more participation. Still, it is a high participation, if we compare that before 2010, but still the process went very good, and the outcome actually was very, very good.
Dr. Massoud, now one of the main things that the new parliament will be looking at is the government. Now we've already had a previous government that resigned, and because of many reasons, some of them were corruption related. A lot of people thought that maybe the economic team within that previous government was not performing up to the standards that all Egyptians were aspiring for. And then they will evaluate the current government. Do you feel that the current government is performing better than the previous one? Specifically, the economic team, the economic ministers. Do you feel that they've been really transforming the Egyptian economy since they actually took office?
Well, honestly, both government have been doing very well in terms of the period that Egypt actually got through last few years, 4 years or more than a little bit. This government agenda is what really I like about it, is concentrating on process stabilizing the economy, as well as taking steps in start to put some structural change in the economy that it looks actually in the short run, in the long run at the same time. The ex-government was mainly dominated by looking a little bit ahead, by trying to implement huge projects, but we were not that successful in terms of stabilizing the economy. So the current government actually is dealing with that issue very well. We really should notice that in macroeconomics management in Egypt have been doing great in terms of not only from today's or this government, since maybe in the middle of 1990s. The macroeconomics level management in Egypt is very good. You cannot imagine as economists to tell you in the economic contest in Egypt, and you find the central bank is still actually holding the inflation rate below 12% or 11%. This is an achievement. Also, the Minister of Finance is doing a great job since in the middle of 1990s, not even today. But we really need a little bit of vision, teamwork, that not only the economic group that is going to work, whatever actually the economic group is doing can be stopped at the level of local administration. If you don't have governors that really understand what the government at the level of macro, what is the procedures are doing, and how these procedures can be transferred to the macro level and to the local administrative units and government, this is what I call actually the missing gear, that all the efforts that have been done by the government were not feeling that much by citizens. Why? Because we have missing gears. We still have our governors are not really qualified enough to transfer the government activities and government policies into their government. In this issue, I really would love to have this economic units in every government that run in a very professional way that can connect what is really going in the macro level to the governors and so on and so on, which is clear so much when you talk about investment. The Minister of Investments have been doing a great job since 1990s, also in the mid of 1990s. But when you sit down a little bit in the government level, here is the missing gears comes out. Look just for procedures, and you are not really understanding what is really going on.
Yes. Well, talking about the economic units, in previous parliaments and governments, there were a lot of businessmen, and a lot of people criticized businessmen really being part of the political life because they use these positions for their own benefits and really heighten the level of corruption in Egypt. However, a lot of people, because now the new parliament is actually witnessing a lot of businessmen as well, whether they're as independent individual candidates or under party lists. So do you believe that it's not so good that there are still a lot of businessmen in the parliament, or are you one of the people who believe that this is actually good that there are a lot of businessmen in the parliament that would actually help really work on, facilitate and amend a lot of the investment laws that would help the Egyptian economy move forward?
Well, actually, honestly, it is not the case in Egypt, even when this is the extreme part of the European countries. Find this kind of looking at the investors and businessmen that like they are evil people who just work for themselves, and they really don't want to take whatever they can take from the country in their benefits. What's really extremely wrong? What I feel that a businessman, he cannot be successful unless he is smart enough, he can make decisions, right decisions. While what kind of people we really need in the parliament? People you need to analyze. They can analyze information very well, and businessmen really by nature they are very good on that. They are very active and very strong in making positions and very serious about that. Well, I believe we need this skills in the parliament. People are very informative about what is going on in the country, and businessmen are very informative. Looking at businessmen, and this is still very bad stereotype about businessmen in Egypt that they are evil guys and they are really not supporting countries. Well, we have no future except with a very strong private sector. No way that the government can produce anything after that. Let government govern, provide policies, implement laws, law enforcement, judicial system, provide education, but let people do the production. Who will do that? Who are people that they are qualified to do? This is the businessmen. Businessmen understand entrepreneurship very well. So in the coming parliament, actually needs so much to encourage entrepreneurship, have special laws even to encourage this entrepreneurships and dealing with all the problem that faces especially small entrepreneurship or just the younger of them. So I believe businessmen, we are the most people that connected to this issue and that will be very helpful actually from my point of view for sure.
Yes. Well, what about the investment law? The investment law has been a topic of discussion and debate for many months now, because there were a lot of committees who actually tried to work on the investment law to overcome a lot of the challenges, the bureaucratic obstacles that any foreign investor would face if he wants to come and invest in Egypt. But so far, do you feel that the upcoming parliament would be successful in actually amending or changing the investment law, or is this something that is deeply embedded in the Egyptian culture that one way or another we will always have these bureaucratic obstacles and challenges?
Well, this is why I'm telling you that this parliament task is great and the most important task, because it's the task to transform the Egyptian from Egypt from being centralized to decentralized. Here it is when I talk to decentralized, because the main reason for bureaucratic stuff is centralization. You centralize everything in one hand, you get all the bureaucratic steps and bureaucratic procedures. But unfortunately, still now when we talk about decentralization, people think that decentralization means that we are preparing for separating regions or country. If you give more independence in some administrative and financial stuff in a government, maybe it's going to be in one day or another is going to be prepared for being independent. This is really wrong. So, dealing with bureaucratic procedure in investment in economics and administrative, it has to tackle both administrative and financial decentralization. It has nothing to do actually with culture. It is dealing with institution which actually create the culture that we deal with. Egyptians, when they move outside, they deal with institutions. They don't keep their cultures. The Egyptian culture, it does not work. Why? Because there is a setting of institutions that really requires a specific rule. Regarding the investment law, let me make it clear here. What we don't really look at the law as it is a separate island. There is a huge connection between the investment law and even the buildings and all this stuff laws. You can get very nice incentives for people to start their business. However, it takes so long time to get building and construction permits. So this is which actually it is within the governorate, which is in the engineering units in the governorates and the cities and so on and so on. So dealing with investment and investors, we should look at it as a whole, not only at investment. We can grow a little bit and we can do a great job actually in a specific area, but another area, if we really didn't tackle at the same time, it's not going to be that successful. Getting into the business environment in Egypt still, we have a huge effort have to be done and have to tackle during this parliament session actually. We are talking about all these building laws, about all this decentralization and centralization issue that were raised very highly actually between 2006 and 2009, and after that, things just slow down. You need actually to need to stereotype investors. If a senior official or an official came on the TV saying that we really look at foreign investors as people are coming here to steal from our people, how can you believe that if someone hear that would be pro for investing in Egypt? No. So it takes a little bit of time, but we should put good institutions in the place actually to do it. And the center of that for sure investment law, but investment law alone is not going to be that helpful.
Dr. Massoud, now we're going to be talking more about the economic file later in the episode, but let's go back to the formation of the parliament. Now, this parliament has witnessed 88 seats for women, which is a first, really. So how do you evaluate the representation of women and youth as well in the parliament? Everyone would look at the 88 and everyone would be so happy with it because it didn't really happen before, but should we have expected even much more representation by women and youth, or do you think that that is actually more than we would have expected?
Well, I believe that women's and youth's performance in the coming session is going to be really very good, and even I can guess that it's going to be even much more advanced than the other guys in the parliament. Why? Because these guys are really want to prove themselves, and if we do it, next session you will find more women and more youth are actually going joining the parliament. What is interesting about the number of seats that the women get? Well, we are dealing with, in society we have 50% of women, okay? So 88 seats is really not enough, but getting these seats give them a little bit of hope that we are really start to be very active in the society. And honestly, women played a huge and a vital role during this last 4 years. Look at the women participation in all the elections over the 4 years. It was amazing. It never happened before that in Egypt. Not only in Egypt, even I'm talking about other Egypt even. We never seen women participate in that. So I expect that women are going to do much greater job even in this session. So this is going to be reflected in the number of seats next sessions.
Yes, definitely. Well, there are still 28 seats that will be filled and appointed by President Sisi. Now, what sort of criteria do you feel the President should look at in appointing these new seats? Do you feel that he should look at the representation already existing in the parliament and work on balancing it out, or do you feel that he already has the 28 names that he knows he wants to allocate for the new session?
Well, I believe it is good to see what we need in the next session, what we need from this one. We need, for instance, the economic file is going, it has to be handled very well. So if the economists are not represented in this session, it has to be. Lots of laws are going to be actually done during this session. Then we need people who are expert in laws, expert in constitutions that will be joined. We are going to talk about changing the whole regimes in terms of centralization. We need people in public policies, experts to do that. We really want to close the gap between us and the Western countries and developed and emerging countries. So this means we need people who really can do that. So I really don't like looking at direct thing by appointing more women or more youth or more just whatever. I would really like to look at the experience that this parliament missing, and we inject this experience using these 28 seats.
Yes, definitely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, definitely the economic file will be part of the main discussion for the upcoming parliament, and in the latest news, the Egyptian Central Bank pumped about $1 billion into the banks across Egypt. Let's support, and we'll be talking more in details about it with Dr. Massoud, so stay tuned.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, a year of challenges and achievements. Regaining Egypt's leading role regionally and internationally. New mega development projects. Upgrading Egypt's infrastructure. New Egypt, forward ever.
Egypt's central bank injected this week more foreign currency liquidity into the banking system in the latest series of steps aimed at ending a foreign exchange shortage that has seen goods pile up at ports. Bankers said the central bank announced the move suddenly shortly before the working day ended and offered dollars at a rate of 7.7401 pounds, its official selling price for dollars. The bankers and brokers were speculating on Sunday that the move was intended to clear further 25% of dollar overdrafts, but there was no official confirmation. It was unclear how much foreign currency the central bank had pumped out in total, as bankers said each bank was only aware of the share it would be receiving, suggesting the move was meant to cover outstanding dollar exposure at banks. Bankers said they'd been asked in the past weeks to report to the central bank on their exposure and outstanding letters of credit. The dollar injection has been anticipated since new Governor Tariq Ahmed told President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi this month that the central bank intended to pump additional forex liquidity into the system soon and was planning an extraordinary dollar auction. Issued on December the 2nd after the meeting between al-Sisi and Ahmed, the presidency statement indicating an intervention could be on the cards did not say where Egypt would source the dollars or how it expected to rebuild its foreign currency reserves. Since Ahmed's appointment in late October, the central bank has taken measures to supply banks with dollars as the country struggles with a foreign currency shortage that has stifled imports and slowed manufacturing output. Last month, the central bank supplied $1 billion to banks to cover 25% of dollar overdrafts they had opened for companies during the crisis, just after state banks had supplied $1.8 billion to clear a backlog of imports. Ahmed made his first major move as governor on December 1st by repaying foreign portfolio investors $547.2 million, clearing the entire backlog. He also changed the way dollars would be allocated based on banks' trade obligations. In November, the head of the Federation of Egyptian Industry said the central bank had promised to close the entire $4 billion exposure. In February, the outgoing central bank governor imposed restrictions on the amount of dollars companies could deposit in banks. The aim was to crush the dollar black market, but it made it difficult for companies to open letters of credit to pay for imports and left foreign companies struggling to repatriate their profits or exit the market, hitting investor confidence. The central bank announced last week that Egypt's annual core inflation rate rose to 7.44% in November compared to 6.26% in October. The monthly core inflation rate increased by 0.96% in November compared to 1.23% in October. Official Statistics Agency announced the annual inflation rate accelerated to 11.8% in November, a 5-month high. The country's reserves have fallen from $36 billion before the 2011 revolution to about $16.4 billion in October, leaving the central bank with little firepower to defend the Egyptian pound from mounting downward pressure.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now focusing on the $1 billion that were injected by the Egyptian Central Bank into the banks here in Egypt. Dr. Massoud, first of all, is this, well, let's assume that it's good news. Okay. First of all, where did this $1 billion come from? Is it from the foreign reserves? And if it is from the foreign reserves, is this something that we might feel the effect of later on in the year, or is this something that $1 billion is not really going to make much of a difference?
Well, $1 billion in terms of the reserve we have is $16 billion. It's really, it's a good money. It's a very good step, actually. Why? Because it's directly actually to stabilize the market. As we were talking before, we are under the Egyptian pound under one direction speculation since 1997, which means that all participants of the market expecting the Egyptian pound is going to be declining in its value. So this means that a lot of pressure on the Egyptian pounds to be depreciated more and more and more. By doing such action, pumping this 1 billion, actually sending a message that we are going to stabilize the foreign exchange market, whatever it takes.
Well, why didn't we take that step earlier? Why did we have to wait until the dollar was valued at maybe 8 Egyptian pounds, if not even more?
Well, we did before that. We did before, actually, since 2012 we did that many times, but we were hesitating. But this time the head of the central bank is really committed to stabilize, and he's supported by the prime minister, he's supported even by the president, and his task to stabilize the financial, so it's a message to be sent actually to the market participants.
So we should expect that the value of the dollar would actually go a little bit down. It already reached 7.74
Exactly.
In the banks, but if you go to any exchange, currency exchange office, it's still going to be maybe £8, if not even a little bit more.
Exactly. Well, we expect actually this is to rise a little bit, but we really should send you this message clearly. If we can do it, 3 times or whatever, is going to be stabilize the exchange market. The main issue is the foreign exchange market and the Egyptian pound exchange rate. Actually, it is because it is under one direction speculation since 1990, which any currency in the world, if get under one direction speculation, is going to be really facing a huge problem. I appreciate what the central bankers in Egypt are doing, and they have been doing.
But do you feel that even though the central bank injected $1 billion, do you feel that it will still remain a one direction sort of expectations for the decline of the value of the Egyptian pound, or do you feel that it will probably go in a different direction?
The market actually is going to look to the central bank if it is committed or not. If the market think and decided that the central bank is really committed to stabilize the financial or the exchange rate, is going to be great success to stop this one direction speculation of the Egyptian pounds. And I believe this is going to take at least 4 to 5 months hard working from the central bank of Egypt to do it. It is not in one day. Just building and actually changing and moving the expectations of the market participant in foreign exchange market from one direction to the next direction.
So should we expect also the effect would be felt in other currencies as well, such as the euro?
Sure. But the good news also that we are now expecting the next year is going to be the projection of the Minister of Planning of the economic growth is going to be 5%, which actually already we can feel the economic growth in Egypt this year to be 4%. Last year was 2.1. All this gives trust in the Egyptian economy, which means a little bit of support for the Egyptian currency.
Yes. Well, concerning that, there are 2 points of view regarding the forecast for the GDP for next year. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, no, there is some sort of growth, economic growth that's felt this year in the Egyptian economy. Yet a lot of people are also saying that no, the expansion of the Suez Canal project did not yield the profits and the revenues that were expected. The economic conference that was held in Sharm el-Sheikh really had a lot of high hopes attached to it, but it didn't really meet these aspirations. So how can we actually predict that we're going to have a 5% 5.5% of gross domestic product growth next year?
Well, actually, because once you stabilize your exchange rate, this is one aspect actually foreign direct investment looks at. Because foreign investors, when they invest in Egypt, when they transfer their profits back, they have to go on the foreign exchange market and exchange the money they have, the Egyptian pound they have, into dollars or other currency. So stabilizing the Egyptian pounds is one element. Second element, all the investments laws and the incentives that the government is getting, it is really extremely important to send the message for investors. All the business CC actually task for the current government in terms of working very hard to make the business environment in Egypt is better. All of this is felt by the businessmen and felt by the investor. So it's going to happen. When you talk about also the 1.5 million Faddan project, for sure is going to be a great value added to the economy. One of the main source of the economic growth in Egypt is agriculture.
Yes, definitely. Also, Massoud, you've mentioned earlier in today's episode that the private sector is probably the most important moving and encouraging factor in the economy. And since the government has so far been really implementing and attacking a lot of mega projects that started off with the expansion of the Suez Canal, talking about the new administrative capital, talking about the 1.5 million Faddans also a couple of days ago. So these are all mega projects. A lot of people are arguing, well, we are talking about mega projects really run and financed mainly by the government, and also the presidential visits to different countries such as Russia, China, and all these countries. It's all mainly government-driven business, and the private sector is not really getting its share of encouragement and opportunities in this period of time. What do you think?
Well, here it is. Actually, the government is doing its part in this area because it has to stimulate the economy. It has to have this major project. The private sector in Egypt, I don't believe is ready to do it, like this 1.5 million. I don't think that the private sector can do what it happened in Suez Canal, a project, but who is going to do the second stage or the second step in the Suez Canal project? For sure, the private sector. So the private sector is growing. The private sector now is responsible for 80% of the economic growth in Egypt, and the economic growth in Egypt last year. So we are looking forward for the private sector to what is the government is doing is like building the infrastructure for the private sector to take off. Without all of this what the government is doing, actually the private sector is going to be in half. So the government is having this mega project on one side, and the other side actually is adapting some stabilizing economics policies, plus making the structure changing the economy which deals with the long run.
We're talking also about the attraction of foreign investors to Egypt. How successful do you feel the government has been in attracting foreign investors to Egypt?
Well, foreign direct investment last year it was 4 billion. This year it was 6.4, which is you have 25% increase, 25 increase, or 30% increase in foreign direct investment, which it's a huge sign that the foreign investors now start to feel the trust about the policies that the Egyptian government is implementing and conducting now.
Well, what about also different ministries and different industries here in Egypt? You've pointed out that the agriculture industry is a very important one to the Egyptian economy. Also, the tourism industry, which is really one of the main sources of foreign currency here in Egypt. There's been a lot of talk about efforts being exerted by the Minister of Tourism in actually strengthening and refreshing the tourism industry. How successful do you think that has been, especially in light of all the security concerns that we've had over the past years?
Well, actually, the main issue that happened after the Russian planes accident, for sure, our industry is getting down, but we expect that within a couple of months, maybe not a couple of months, maybe before that, it's going to be flourishing a little bit more. It's not going to take that long time to be recover and at the full recover. As you said, the main threat here, the geopolitical issues in the Middle East, and it happens actually during the last 4 years. So this is the main effects for the tourism industry in Egypt. But tourism also, when it comes to the Ministry of Tourism, it has to really also work very hard in marketing what we have here. Second, it has to work very hard actually in new sites. We have new sites in tourism sites and historical sites in Egypt that really are not that prepared to receive people from foreign countries like we have in Suhaj. We have in Suhaj a biggest temple, which is actually the greatest temple in Egypt, but look how many people are visiting. This is why, because actually it is not in the agenda. This has to be looked at. We have in Suhaj lots of historical sites that I believe the Ministry of Tourism is not doing its part in marketing all these great historical sites.
Yes. Dr. Massoud, now you spoke about the mega projects, and one of the main projects as well was the nuclear power plant that will be established in Baba with the help of the Russian expertise. Also the gas exploration from the Mediterranean. How pivotal do you feel these projects will be for the Egyptian economy, especially the energy and renewable energy sectors and industry here in Egypt? And should we expect to actually see the fruit of these projects anytime soon, or are we talking about a 10-year sort of goal?
Actually, comes to energy, we have two directions. The one nuclear plants in Baba, and the other one actually is the solar agenda, the solar energy agenda that the Ministry of Energy actually is doing a great job on. So both directions actually mainly is going to solve the major problem that we face now in terms of energy and electricity especially.
Now another very contentious topic with a lot of concern ever since it actually came up, and the developments are always really bringing it to the forefront, which is the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Now the government has been repeatedly announcing how difficult the talks are, how complicated the situation is. Do you feel that Egypt will be able to secure a good deal on the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam that would in turn affect the country economically, especially the agriculture sector?
When we talk about political leaders that they can save Egypt from Muslim Brotherhood and all this political agenda and all this that were Egypt supposed to get in, I really put my trust deeply in that the political leaders in Egypt now, they can manage this fight so well. No one claimed that knows a lot of information about really what is going to happen and what is the scenarios and so on. This is just expectations or so on. But as an Egyptian citizen, I put all my trust in our political leaders that they can manage it very well.
Dr. Massoud, now talking about the trade balance, talking about the imports and exports. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe the level of exports actually during the past 10 months, maybe even a year, declined by more than 10 or even 20%. Now, should we actually expect that the economic growth next year would reach 5.5% if our exports would actually are dropping over a year for maybe even over 20%?
Well, we can expect that, but look at what the government is doing now. You heard about export subsidy, that we subsidize, the Egyptian government to subsidize people who are actually exporting to outside in order to have these dollars in foreign currencies. But also the government should take in consideration that it is not a matter of export subsidy only what makes the difference. I believe that the government should change its policy regarding subsidies, export subsidies. I believe if this money that goes to export subsidy goes to R&D and technological improvement and technical school and connected this with industry is going to be even making our industry much more competitive.
Dr. Massoud, now do you feel that we are on the right track, taking the right steps towards improving our economic state here in Egypt, or do you feel that there's still a lot of challenges and a lot of things that need to be dealt with before we start heading into the right direction?
Well, actually we are in the right direction. When actually some changes in policies that subsidy ones, you remember during President Sadat when he touched this issue, everything is just almost toned down. Okay, so now when we talk about political leadership that is very committed to really change and increasing the level of competitiveness in the Egyptian economy, so we are really in the right track. We are really in the right track, but what I'm worried about it is that there is a hesitation, a little bit hesitation when it takes major steps. So it's kind of we are in the right track, but sometimes we slow down because of politics. What happens, our policy is a subsidy, well, it should be done since President Sadat actually wanted to do it. And believe me, if President Sadat actually implemented his reform agenda that now we are moving towards implementing, we would be like South Korea now. So we have the experience and we suffered so much from not implementing the right policies just because political reasons. We get the lesson very hard. We got the lesson in a very hard way. I believe the current political leadership is really committed to implement the full agenda of economic reform. So I expect it's going to be done. Yes. The only thing is worried, sometimes we feel that some hesitation or whatever, but I believe that we are in the right track.
Well, Dr. Massoud, this economic reform plan, does it still include a lot of austerity measures, a lot of tightening of the belt, lifting some subsidies, increasing taxes, high inflation?
Well, lifting subsidies, yes. I believe this should be. Because the subsidy, the majority of the subsidy, the huge percentage of the subsidy does not go, actually is not benefiting poor people. Why you are subsidizing commodities and services to actually to do what? To support poor people. Well, if you have one car, if you don't have cars, are you going to benefit from subsidies for gasoline? If you have two, you are going to benefit more. If you you have 10 cars, I don't forget that name. If you have a small lamp in your house, you are going to benefit from subsidy very small amount. But how about if you have central air conditions and all heating system and all these lamps around electricity? So subsidies during the last 2 decades or 3 decades surely were not benefiting the poor people that we were targeting. So making subsidies actually, especially when you talk about the budget deficit, huge budget deficit you have that is almost 12% of your GDP. And when you have 2 trillion domestic debt, 2 trillion Egyptian pound domestic debt, and when you have 48 billion dollar external debt, we really have to consider subsidies. Why subsidies? Look at the structure of our budget. When you talk about 21% wages and salaries, can you touch it? Okay, when you talk about 20% debt service, can you touch it? When you talk about 39% subsidies, that mostly does not benefit the people. Do you have to deal with it? Yes, you really should deal with it. The only thing that I recommend the Egyptian government to do is try to take care of the transformation. Yes, and this actually the government is doing that, because if you look to the Egyptian budget, public budget, you find the social support is increasing. Even the social solidarity support is increasing. Even the budget in some items you feel it a little bit declining, but you find the support is increasing in terms of social security and social solidarity, which is actually directed to the poor.
Yes, definitely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of developments taking place in the economic and political life here in Egypt. Definitely the economic file is one that will always be under discussion in the parliament and here in the daily debate. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the daily debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank our very distinguished guest, Dr. Massoud, the head of the economic department at University of Nile. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Hannah. Thank you for joining us.